Hello, I'm Dr. Steve Jones. I'm one of the neonatal consultants here at the RUH, and I'm going to be talking you through the peri-prem bundle, and in particular the equipment that we use for delayed cord clamping. This is a bundle for preterm babies. We're starting to think under 34 weeks, but it gets particularly more important as you go down with gestation. The whole idea of the peri-prem bundle is to improve outcome for our babies. And if we think about delayed cord clamping, we now know that actually delaying the cord clamping for 1 or 2 minutes and perhaps taking that physiological indication that the lungs have expanded improves outcome, and that reduces intraventricular hemorrhage, reduces NEC, and actually reduces death. So that's the importance of the things that I'm going to show you next. We're also going to look at some of the other general principles involved in the stabilization of preterm babies and some of the other equipment that you'll want to have with you. So here's the equipment. We've got the LifeStart trolley and the Giraffe resuscitator. Together, these two bits of equipment are effectively the same as a traditional resuscitator, although here the LifeStart trolley gives us our heat, because we know we have to add in, particularly for a preterm baby, we have to add heat into the system, and I'm going to be looking at that in more detail shortly. And then the Giraffe resuscitator has the other parts of the resuscitator, so it has the positive pressure ventilation aspects and the suction, and in the same way we've got the blender to go from air and oxygen. So if we have twins, you want 2 of these setups. We have got 3 of them all together, and you'll find them in the labour ward, usually spread out along the corridor. Now we're going to focus on the Giraffe resuscitator, and as I said before, it has the same functionality as a traditional resuscitator that you might be more familiar with. So the first thing you have to do is to switch on your cylinders using the key, okay, and that should be with the equipment. So we have the cylinders switched on, and you can see they both have dials to show that they have got gas in them. There's one for air and one for oxygen. Then we need to check the pressures, so we have our T-piece system, and we need to check the pressures, so I occlude it, switch on.
The high-pitched noise you're about to hear suggests that the gas cylinders are empty. If you hear this noise, please stop, check your gas cylinders, and change them if necessary. For the purposes of this demonstration, assume that that's now been done.
The gas, and then you can see at the moment we've got a little bit too much pressure. So for preterm, I'm going to set the pressures at 20 on 5. There we are. Okay. Then if we need it, we also have suction, and the end of the suction is here, and we would put on a traditional suction catheter. Again, for preterm, we wouldn't use a Yanker sucker or anything like that. For preterm, we have the oxygen. This is the blender, so air on this side, 100% that side, and we start for the preterm, unlike the term, at 30%, given our current state of knowledge. So we'd have all that set up before. If this was in theatre, we would leave this in the packet. You might have to take the end out, but we need to leave it sterile, so we're not going to desterilize the resuscitator. So that's the Giraffe resuscitator. Now we're going to look in a little bit more detail at the LifeStart trolley, which is here, and things like how to switch it on. It obviously needs to be plugged in, and it's good to perhaps be one of the first things to do to get it switched on, because it will help to give it time to heat up. We're going to start with the heater control, and this is controlled the temperature. It says here 39 degrees, which is the warmth, the maximum temperature, and that's essentially the temperature that we want it set at effectively all the time. Unlike the radiant heater, this is actually a heat mat here, and actually you can only feel the heat when you've actually got contact against it. So again, don't get disconcerted if it doesn't feel very hot to the touch. Certainly in clinical trials, this did keep preterm babies warm, provided we had them wrapped in plastic. Other thing this has on it is a thing to adjust the height. So again, we're trying to get it at about the same level as the introitus, or as the sort of halfway through the lady's abdomen if it's a cesarean section. So you can sort of adjust the height. We used to think that was more critical than I think research has now found, so don't get overly worried about that. So get it to a convenient height, somewhere around the level of the introitus is the ideal thing. So that's the height. And then the last thing we have is the clock. And that's this bit here. So you press it to switch it on. And then to start the clock, I'm not quite sure why this happens, it takes about 3 seconds. So you press, and then you see things go out, and then the clock starts. And it's a bit clunky, to be quite frank. Certainly in Suzanne's section, I would always get an assistant to use the clock on the traditional resuscitaire that will be there. Not least because this will be covered by the sterile sheet, as we're going to show you next, but it does have a clock on it.
You will need the LifeStart trolley and the Giraffe resuscitation system, the neonatal resuscitation trolley, a plastic knee wrap, and the transwarmer pad, the SATS machine and the SATS probe. You'll also need a standard resuscitaire to be set up in the usual way with the premature settings of 20/5, along with the near-puff tubing and a small mask which can be found within it. You'll need your suction catheter, a standard thermometer is also helpful, along with your stethoscope. Once in the operating theatre, you want to maintain a sterile field for the initial resuscitation. The neonatal nurse wearing sterile gloves will hand the keypiece to you using an aseptic non-touch technique where you can confirm the settings outlined earlier, 20/5 and 30%. If any adjustments need to be made, the non-sterile neonatal nurse must make them whilst you remain sterile. To set up the LifeStart trolley, you will need the assistance of a sterile member of the theatre team. Once open, partially unfold the Mayo stand cover, then thread the end over like so. Once attached, you can pull the remaining cover towards you, covering the rest of the machine. Note that the on switch and clock will be obscured to ensure they are already switched on. Finally, take the plastic knee wrap out of the packaging and place on top of your pre-prepared trolley. Make sure that it is fully unfolded and ready to receive the child. You now have everything set up and you're ready for the delivery. Before starting the delivery, use the WHO briefing to confirm everybody's roles, explain delayed cord clamping, and position all the equipment you might need. It is particularly important to make the theatre assistant aware that they will need to move out of the way so that the neonatal team can move the resuscitaire and resuscitation over the woman's abdomen. When the baby is about to be delivered, bring the LifeStart trolley into the sterile field. One of the delivery team will place the child on the trolley with their head towards you. Immediately wrap the child within the knee wrap, where you can apply PEEP or further resuscitation whilst awaiting delayed cord clamping. Once the baby is stabilised, the cord can be clamped and you can transition resuscitation to the traditional resuscitaire. It is important to maintain PEEP and you can swap supply to the resuscitaire if required. Once on the resuscitaire, you can add the saturation monitor and check the baby's temperature. From here, you can show the baby to the parents and then move care into the neonatal intensive care unit. In a vaginal delivery, it is still possible to use the LifeStart trolley. You don't need to be sterile. The resuscitator wraps the baby and then applies PEEP or further resuscitation as needed. Once again, we are waiting for 1 to 2 minutes, or ideally until the lungs are open. Once the cord is cut, the baby can be transferred to the traditional resuscitaire. In the event there is not enough space for the LifeStart trolley, we can use a transwarmer. To activate, you click the metal tab in the middle of the warmer and rub it together. Cover it with a towel and then place the sterile knee wrap on top. The baby can then be delivered into the hands of the assistant whilst you perform resuscitation as needed with the Giraffe. Once again, this allows for thermal regulation and delayed cord clamping, even in a tight spot.